Hey, hello again. It's David with the LEO Network podcast, and doing the same thing we've been doing, talking about training and equipment and/or equipment that is already subscribed to our website. And what we're going to do is delve more into the product with as many guests as we can so you better understand the products, better understand the training to make you better in your career, make you safer in your career. It's huge, so you know what you're getting into, and you know if you didn't have interest before in the product or the training, this will definitely get you that interest. So, and matter of fact, we got it set up to where these companies, training and equipment, they will even offer discounts on the website. So get subscribed to that and keep tuning into these podcasts so we can get a better understanding of the product. And I'm proud to say that we are sponsored by Campbell Harris Security Equipment Company, or SECO, as they're affectionately known. And security needs, get on the site. My next guest is with the Gang Task Force, so he might find some of this stuff useful. So even the guests will check out each other's product, and that's awesome. So SECO, they have contraband detection kits. They have radiation detectors. They even have those little mirrors for the undercarriage of cars. So get on their website. I think you'll be pleased. It's going to be cseco.com. And proud to have them as a sponsor. Also, I'll say this at the end too, but if you want to, if you're seeing this and you are signed up with us and you have training and you have equipment and you want to talk about it, you want everybody to know about it, LEO-network. It's actually podcast at leo-network.com, and get at us. We'll get right back at you and we'll set something up. In the meantime, his name is Michael RICKS, and the company is the perfect name. Simple, right to the point. Michael RICKS Training LLC. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
How you doing? How you doing, Michael? Thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate you.
Good, man. Hey, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right. So what you got going on? You mentioned something about uh maybe having to edit later on.
Oh, yeah. So please forgive me. If you hear some background noise or anything, I'm at the house right now, and I actually set up the baby's nursery as my studio for this. So we had a newborn, we had a new little son born on Saturday, and I got a 4-year-old as well. So if you hear any ruckus kind of in the background, then that's what we got going on.
Madness. You
Yes,
got
sir.
pets. You got pets too, dogs and cats.
Yeah, we got a cat too. So I mean, we got the full thing going on, and a wonderful wife kind of wrangling all of that while I'm here doing this. So
Hey man, with all the Zoom that's been happening over the last few years, I think it's something that people are used to. You know what I mean?
yeah, no
I
doubt.
mean, the people don't even know I don't even have any pants on right now. So
You never know, right?
joking. I'm joking about that. So
Right.
hey, listen. So uh, I'm going to talk a little bit about who you are, but you're going to obviously fill in all the details, right? So Gang Task Force in Atlanta, GA, right?
Yeah, so I'm in the Metro Atlanta area. I don't work for Atlanta Police, but we work. My jurisdiction kind of touches Atlanta, and we're a huge county, and we super diverse. We have 1 million people. Like I said, we have everything from Atlanta addresses to, as you push out, we get kind of from urban to suburban, and then we even have like some pretty rural parts too. So I get, you can work in this one jurisdiction and you can be like a city cop all the way out to like chasing cows. So
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Business is booming out there right now, I guess, right? I mean, Atlanta
Yeah,
is a hotbed, isn't it?
yeah, no doubt. So where there was a survey back in 2018 that said Georgia had like over 71,000 documented gang members. So that's just the ones we know about, right? And that over 60% of violent crime in our state is gang motivated. So it's pretty crazy, especially with the gang activity that I would deal with. Like you said, I am on the gang unit at my local agency, and I'm also on a federal gang task force as well. We to say we stay busy, it's kind of an understatement.
Oh, I hear you. How long you been in law enforcement?
So I've been with my department for a little over 7 years. I did some time in the Army Reserves before that while I was in college and everything. And for the last 4.5, I've been doing the gang stuff.
Ooh, so what gets Rick into or Michael, Michael Ricks get
No, you're
into
good.
Gang Task Force? What makes you get in there?
So honestly, man, it's a passion thing for me. So 2018, I was kind of, I'd just gotten my feet wet in law enforcement. I'd been on the job for about 2 years. and I was kind of back and forth. I was like, do I want to do narcotics or do I want to do gangs? You know, both of those units kind of look pretty badass, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, in October of 2018, we lost a coworker and a friend of mine, and he got shot by a gang member on end the line of duty, and
Yeah.
that kind of tipped the scale for me.
Mhm.
Went straight to 100%. I want to fight these gangs. I want to take them off our streets. They're killing members of our society. They're killing law enforcement officers, and I want to make. I feel like that's the way that I can make public safety even greater. You know?
Yes, I know. I hear you. So, as with all the guests, we talk a little bit the day before to get a better understanding with what you're doing there. So, you your passion led you into not just you receiving training to the point to where you developed expertise to where you started teaching other folks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I've been interested in the gang unit leading up to everything, and then, like I said, when that unfortunate event occurred, that's what I was like, I'm dedicating my entire career to this gang stuff, right? Like, it's so important. And so, a couple of months after that, I got the call to come up to the gang unit, and I've been doing that stuff ever since. And I've really poured myself into it to a point where I started getting asked to kind of speak at a conference here or a conference there, and it got to a point where I was kind of going all over the state training people, which I love because I feel like gangs are such a huge issue everywhere you go, not just in large metro areas, but even more rural spaces too. There's gangs everywhere. That same survey I talked to you about just in Georgia, it found we have 159 counties in our state, and it found that there are documented gang members living in 157 of them. And I don't even know which two weren't documented, but I would venture to say there are probably gang members there that they just don't know about, right?
Hmm.
And so this is something that affects all of us, and that's not just Georgia. Um, I've been fortunate enough to travel to all over the Southeast doing this gang work. I've gone up to Chicago for some training. I've gone up to Indiana, Maryland, a few other places, and everywhere seeing the same stuff. Gangs are everywhere. So I love spreading this knowledge, and I was going all over the place spreading this knowledge. And it got to a point where I was like, yeah, maybe spend a little bit too much time on the clock training outside agencies,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to stop. I owe it to my agency to do my job on the clock and do
Hmm.
my investigations to handle my caseload. Um, so I talked to a few people that I really trust. I was like, hey, this training stuff, it's something I really care about, and I want to share this knowledge because I feel like every, everywhere is affected by this, like I was saying, but a lot of people don't have the education about gang stuff
Hmm.
that it takes to really leverage that and kind of go after them as an organization and really eliminate that threat from your area, your jurisdiction, your community. So I'm passionate about sharing this knowledge because it works, it's effective, it'll bring crime down in your area. So I started this little LLC on the side to kind of keep rolling on that while I'm still giving my agency the work that I owe to them.
Most definitely. I just I went to a gang task force. Well, I don't want to say task force. It was a conference in
Okay.
South Bend, Indiana.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's a Midwest Gang Association, I believe is the name of it. And forgive me, he's a major part of LEO Network, so I'm messing this up. So I'm gonna have to text him and apologize for not getting the name straight. But I mean, it's there. You'll be happy to know that you have teammates that you don't even know about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no
Around
doubt.
this. So you remember, I'm dating myself right now. I'm dating myself, but you remember back in the day, it was two main ones, right? Crips and Bloods, right?
Crips and Bloods. Yep.
Okay, way back, and it was glamorized, even.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it seemed big. It seemed like you couldn't walk anywhere without being carjacked or being mugged or drive anywhere without being carjacked or whatever the case may be. I think it was glamorized and made people made some people even want to be a part of it, right?
Right.
But now, Wouldn't you say? I mean, as big as they made it for those core years there, it's far greater now, right? What we're going through now trumps that, don't you think?
Yeah, no doubt. So I mean, you're right, man. Crips and Bloods, like everybody in the world can tell you what color the Crips rep with, or what color the Bloods rep with.
Hmm.
That goes all the way back to like the '80s when that movie Colors came out. You seen that one?
Oh,
Uh,
come on, man. Come on.
yeah, I know, right? It's a
Yeah,
classic.
yeah,
'80s. Or
yeah,
I just watched Training Day again the other night. They're talking about MS-13 and Serenos and stuff in there.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, dude. So in 2011, the FBI did a gang threat assessment that found there were 1.4 million gang members in the United States at that point. They haven't done another one yet, but the trend that we're seeing is like exactly like you said, with the in the age of social media and the internet and all that, cell phones, gang recruitment is going through the roof. So the numbers are just going higher and higher and higher every year. Um, and that conference in South Bend that you're talking about, that's crazy that you were there. Actually, I gave a presentation on hybrid gangs at that conference.
Hybrid
So
games, hybrid gangs.
yeah,
Speak on that.
so that kind of goes back to what you were saying, man. The Crips and the Bloods, right? You want to talk about old school traditional gangs that everybody has heard of, and same thing,
Hmm.
Sureños, Norteños. If you want to talk about Hispanic gangs, Aryan Brotherhood, biker gangs, traditional gangs, things that everybody has heard of and recognizes, right? That's one thing that I harp on a lot in my training is those gangs are still out there and they're still doing dangerous stuff, but we can't focus 100% of our attention on traditional gangs like that. I like to call it kind of breaking the LA mindset, the
Right.
traditional gang mindset, because what we're seeing all over the country now, and I learned, it was amazing the people coming up to me after I spoke in South Bend from all over the country talking about they're seeing it in their area too. We're seeing this phenomenon called hybrid gangs, and we have been for probably the last decade or so, where people are moving. We consider the three like big gang cities to be Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago, right? That's where gangs come from. And I think it's been going on in the Metro Atlanta area for a little bit longer than other places, but it's going everywhere now. People were moving from all three of those cities to our area and bringing their gang culture with them. Um, but they realized they were a long way from home. They were a long way from kind of their big homies, their support structure, and all that.
Yeah.
You would get families that had ties to the Crips moving into the same apartment complex, families that had ties to Bloods, GDs, whatever else, and then they would have their kids start growing up together. And the kids don't care where mommy and daddy came from. They might be
Hmm.
flying a blue flag over here and a red flag over there, but they care about what's going on in their backyard and how they can make money with each other. So they're
Hmm.
forming their own little cliques and calling them hybrid gangs, where it's you might pull a car over, save your patrol officer, and you might have a Blood driving and a Crip in the passenger seat and a GD in the back, and you're looking like, what the hell? Like,
That's
like,
unheard of. That's
yeah,
unheard of. Yeah.
yeah, like this doesn't make sense. But that's what I'm talking about. We got to break this traditional gang mindset of blue and red don't always go together, because yeah, they don't always, and we still do have traditional gangbanging goes on, but what we're seeing almost more than anything else is these local hybrid cliques popping up. And they're making their own names, and it's dudes from multiple backgrounds coming together because they're so far away from where the big homies are and kind of the motherland over there in LA, right? And they're just thinking, how can I make money with the dudes that are right here in my backyard? They're forming up around apartment complexes, school districts, neighborhoods, whatever else, and
Well,
they're kind of wreaking havoc. They're hard to investigate because,
I was gonna say
yeah,
CIs, right?
yeah,
A CI. I mean, it's got to be hard, right? I mean, because you
yeah.
don't know who's running with who now, right?
You almost start off kind of behind the curve every time.
Hmm.
I like to give an example. Summer of 2021, we were having a gang beef along. There's a road in my jurisdiction where it's just a ton of apartment complexes, crimes happening all the time, and we started seeing a bunch of shootings back and forth. And found out it's two little local crews that we had never heard of, but both of them were comprised of like Bloods, GDs, and Crips all together, but they were beefing with each other. And we had like 4 or 5 shootings along this one road, drive-bys and what have you. One of it culminated in a murder, and we were behind the curve. We had heard of one of them before, but the other one, we had seen some social media posts, some hashtags, and whatever else, but we didn't really know what they were
Hmm.
until unfortunately somebody was dead, and we're like, we got to figure out what's going on. So you can start out behind the curve, but if you really dig into them and you start associating everybody, you can break them down as an organization. That ended up turning into a RICO investigation. We got 26 of them off the streets, including the leadership and all that stuff. So you can still investigate them as a gang. You just got to put a little bit more work into it and break that mindset of, red and blue don't go together, because what we're seeing in modern day is they're going together and they're still killing people together,
Yeah. There's a question. You mentioned Rico. There's a question I'm going to ask you. I'm writing it down so I don't forget, because I feel it's an important one. But before I do that, I want to ask a stupid question that a lot of people might know, but like maybe the newbie officers or something like that want to ask the question, but are too afraid to. How there's always they're afraid to ask the question, but it's a legit question. And I don't mind looking like a fool, so I'll ask you. You notice, you hear a ton about what you just said: Crips, Bloods, Northerners, Southerners. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But as far as being on display, like the Aryan Nation isn't on display like that. Hell's Angels isn't on display like that. The Mongols, and am I wrong, or am I wrong? And if I'm right, is it because social media? One is addicted to social media, one's not. You get what I'm saying? Like, they're there, and of course they're there. They're obviously there, but you can step outside and trip over a Crip or a Blood, right? But
no doubt.
But like, you understand the question, do you not?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. Pretty much like, why aren't we seeing kind of the white supremacist groups or the biker gangs broadcast as much as what we were seeing the Crips and Bloods in the news? Is that pretty much what you're getting at, or?
Well, yes, it's almost like they fly under the radar. And so, like, you say they fly under the radar, and they're let them screw up, and then we'll just fly under the radar and just, or is just as much, is just as much being done to dismantle those gangs as well, and we just don't see it.
So there's a ton going on to dismantle those gangs. I think it might just not get as much attention, and I think that might go back to one of those things that I was talking about earlier, which is social media. A lot of the times, like these biker gangs and stuff, typically kind of comprised of slightly older individuals. Like we're usually looking at like mid-20s on from there. Whereas with other traditional street gangs, like you were talking about, Northerners and Southerners, Sureños, Norteños, Bloods, Crips, stuff like that. The average, you'll have to forgive me, the average, you could call it lifespan of a gangbanger in the United States. And I got this from looking at some, what do you call them? Peer-reviewed journals and stuff, peer-reviewed research, and kind of crunching numbers that a bunch of other people who are smarter than me had put together. I just kind of did some calculations, right?
Right.
The average lifespan of a street gang member is 14 to 17 years old. And then if you make it past that, those are the people that are going to be more established and all that. But 80% of the gang members in the United States live their gang career from 14 to 17.
Wow.
And so what we're seeing with that is, like you said, is getting more broadcasted, because these are kids, right? And they're undisciplined, and they want to get out there what they're doing, rather than these groups that primarily recruit older members. Like the biker gangs, they wear their cuts and they're proud of who they are, but they're usually older individuals who are going to try to move in a little bit more silence, to try to kind of not draw as much attention to what they're doing. But yeah, don't get me wrong though, ATF and stuff, ATF is always working biker gang cases.
Yeah.
A few books came out about it. Like I think Under and Alone is about infiltrating the outlaws, and there's that No Angel story about the ATF agent that became a fully patched in Hell's Angel in an undercover investigation. And so
what's his name? I gotta read about this.
Jay Dobbins. This is a fascinating story, man. Fascinating story.
Jay Dobbins.
Yeah. I actually saw him speak at a conference one time. It was crazy hearing his story, but he infiltrated, he did UC work for, I think, over 2 years, infiltrated the Hells Angels, and ended up bringing down a bunch of them with the ATF. But yeah, there's a bunch of stories like that. I just think they don't get, one, they're not happening in the inner city as much. So they're not getting the huge news coverage of like a metro area, right? And two, like I said, it's not it's not young kids that they're dealing with. It's older people who are going to move a little bit smarter. I'm not giving these guys too much credit because they're,
Because they, I mean, because they have the rep, right? I mean,
yeah,
when we if we stop a patch biker, we're putting it out there. Hey, just
yeah,
FYI, I'm stopping a Hell's Angel, and then somebody's going to be en route. It just seems like they're not in your face as much as Norteños, Serenos, and so on and so forth.
mm,
And I was wondering, I mean, is it because social media? Is it because I don't call it Facebook with them. I call it Face Glock because they're always waving some
yeah,
kind of gun, you know what I
yeah,
mean,
no
or
doubt.
whatever. So,
We
but
call it net banging,
what
net,
do you call it? What do you call it?
net banging.
Oh, net.
So, you used to gang bang out on the corner, waving your bandana, throwing
Yeah,
signs, this
yeah,
and
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Those days are gone, man. It's all on Instagram now. Instagram, TikTok, they net bang, man.
Hey,
But
I like that. I'm gonna write that one down too.
yeah,
Uh, so what I was going to get at, what I was going to ask you about is because I think we touched on it a little bit yesterday. Primarily, it's always robbing, drugs, gun
mm,
running, that type of stuff, right?
yep.
But you talked about human trafficking.
Yes. So human trafficking is a huge thing in the gang world right now, man.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So much so, Georgia actually added it. We got a really strong gang law in Georgia, but human trafficking wasn't even covered under the gang law until 2019. But the legislature saw such a trend up in the human trafficking stuff, um, and you got to think about like traditional, like you said, drugs, robbery, stuff like that. It can be difficult to investigate, and dope cases get complex, obviously, and stuff like that. But if you think about it from a street level standpoint, right? Like if I'm slinging dope on the corner and a proactive cop sees me make a couple hand to hand transactions and it's a high drug area and he can articulate it, he's going to come and he's going to find a reason to search my pockets and he's going to find my dope and I'm going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Um, and, or even on a higher level, if you're like, say you're a multi key level dealer, right? You're dealing 10 keys a week, right? Moving a good amount of dope. Every time that 10 keys is gone, what do you got to do?
Re-up.
You got to re-up, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's overhead, right?
Yeah.
But if you are trafficking humans, um, especially sex trafficking, but labor trafficking too, that's something that gets slept on a lot of the time is labor trafficking. We're seeing that a lot with the immigrant community. But think about sex trafficking, right? If you're a proactive cop and you're sitting at a troubled hotel, right? And you see a girl coming in and out of rooms in short time frames. You go
Mm-hmm.
talk to her, you search her, she doesn't have nothing on her, and you're like, I know she is turning tricks, but what are you do? What can you do? You don't have a charge, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
you see a dude sitting in the car watching her do this stuff. Okay, putting two and two together, that might be your pimp. But unless he says, which he's not going to, yeah, I'm pimping that girl out. She's turning tricks for me up in these rooms.
Yeah, you're gonna get that voluntarily, right?
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah,
ain't going to jail.
yeah.
So it's safer for the gang members to do because it's a little bit more difficult to catch them doing it, and
There's
the
more
unfortunate
money too, right?
reality, it feels gross saying this, but you don't have to re-up a girl. You can keep working that girl as long as she has food and water and a roof over her head. You don't have to re-up her, and it feels gross even saying that. I got a daughter, but like,
No,
uh,
I trust me,
it's
I understand. That's why it's tough to talk. I mean, that's why no matter how tough it is to talk about, you got to talk about it. You got to bring,
yeah,
you got to put
yeah,
it out there because people got to know, people got to see. You know what I'm saying? And I'll tell you a quick story after you're done. But yeah, continue.
yeah. So what we're seeing now is gangs have been doing that for a minute, but we're seeing a shift to where they're doing it more and more. The human trafficking stuff because those two reasons, like it's lower overhead and it's harder to investigate unless you get an undercover in to set up a date with these women. And even then, you set the date up and you do the prostitution sting, right?
Mhm.
You might get the prostitute, you might get the pimp. Unfortunately, the charges for that, at least in my area, they're typically misdemeanor charges.
I have a feeling
And
that's going to change soon, though.
yeah, yeah. And even if the girl is a true victim and she's being made to do this stuff, there's studies that show, unfortunately, even when they're being forced into this line of work, it's taken about 6 contacts with law enforcement before they make an outcry. So they're taking the ride on this misdemeanor 4, 5, 6 times before they finally feel comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm a victim. I'm being trafficked." You know, so it's a really difficult topic. But yeah, gangs are doing this. We just had a case where the dude finally pled that I worked. He was a rolling 20 Crip, and he was trafficking a juvenile across state lines. And finally, our vice guys caught up to him, and they brought me in as a gang investigator, and we got to do the hefty prison sentence. But that's why, the human trafficking charges, you're still going to get good time. But that's why I want to harp on educating people about this gang stuff too, because we were able to add additional charges on top of just the human trafficking. We charged him with Georgia's Gang Act, which most states have some type of gang law. Georgia's is the strongest right now. It's got the most bite to it, but most states have something to where at least there's a sentencing enhancement. It's going to add more time for doing this stuff for the benefit of your gang. And so this guy, his plea deal has him doing 26 years in prison, with another 24 on probation after that. So
you know what I would say about that though? Another big reason I wish, I'm hoping that this goes out to is because I want to see we can't stop these people en route to becoming trafficked. You know what I'm saying? Before that, because you mentioned juveniles, right? So listen, you pinch somebody for drugs. You take the drugs, you burn them. It's with the drugs, you burn them.
Yeah.
But you pinch somebody for trafficking, and you save the child's life, right?
Yeah.
That child is affected, or that person, period, for the rest of their days. So
you're absolutely right.
So yay, dude gets 26 years, but the victim gets life sentence.
Yeah, no doubt.
In jail in the mind. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
I'm glad. I'm proud to have you on saying that is something that is definitely being exploded, blown up and being heavily harped on. You know what I mean? And I hope those laws get thicker and thicker.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree. It's just such a difficult thing to track down. And there's great community organizations out there now. There's a group called Our Rescue that's a non-governmental organization that's helping crack down on human trafficking. And there's just a ton of different groups helping out with it. But it's a fight that, unfortunately, we got an uphill battle with.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. Not just with the human trafficking stuff, but with everything that I try to get people to focus on, other than breaking that LA mindset that I was talking about and kind of looking out for these hybrid groups, is when I'm talking to non-gang guys, guys that work these vice crimes or guys that work homicide, guys that work robbery, whatever else, there's always a bigger picture to whatever crime you're looking at. So what I try to harp on is don't just close your case and move on to the next one. Look for what was really going on behind the scenes. Why did that person get murdered? Is this a gang thing? Why was that girl getting trafficked? Who was this benefiting? And if you have a gang investigator in your area, or if you have like a federal gang task force in your area, state gang task force, anything, bring them into your investigation. Unless it's like some type of obvious like domestic thing that's just happening within a family, bring them in. Because what we can do as gang investigators, or what you could even do if you don't have a dedicated gang unit, is take this on an organizational level. And now you're not just getting the one dude that you just closed that case on. We can get the whole group, or at least enough of them to cause a dent and reduce crime in your area, Yeah,
don't get it done just to get it done.
Yeah.
Be thorough about it.
I'm just closing the case, making the arrest, and moving on. Look at the underlying issue, because almost everything is going back to some type of criminal organization. You were talking about cartels yesterday. I mean, stuff going on with the dope and all of that. And you can get to some high level stuff off of street level contact when you really kind of break down and look a little bit further,
Yeah. Yes, hands down. I'm glad, and I want to, and I'm going to have you back because I want to get in everything you're doing. Hey, there's the cat. I heard it.
Yep.
Yeah. I heard the cat. I heard it.
Yeah, we got a kitten about 2 weeks before we had the baby. So
oh dear God. Yeah, my daughter has 2 of them, so waking me up every damn morning. But here's the thing. Like I said, the reason I mentioned, I'm gonna have you back so we can talk more and more about what you're doing out there. the people on leonetwork.com, right? They,
Mhm.
you sign up and they're looking for your trainings, right?
Right.
And if they see it, they run across, this is where, tell them. So tomorrow's a training day, let's say, day one of training day
Yeah.
for you. You're hosting a training. What's going on tomorrow?
So we're going to start by laying a foundation. We're going to talk about what is a gang, because everybody wants to talk about gangs this, gangs that, they got signs, whatever else. But we're going to talk about what is a gang, definition of that, which changes from state to state. But at the end of the day, almost every state has a law that defines what a gang is, and the feds have one too. And at the end of the day, the common characters are, it's a group of people who commit crime together as an organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to move on to, just depending on what type of class we're teaching. But for instance, the one that I teach the most often is just baseline introduction to gangs, right? We're going to break down, like we were kind of talking about the difference between a traditional gang and a hybrid gang earlier, right?
Right. Yes.
We're going to break that down in detail, in different ways you can tell, this is a traditional gang. I'm dealing with a traditional blood set, whatever, versus, I maybe need to look at this as a hybrid group or something like that in my community. And then from that point forward, once we've kind of understood the different categories of gangs, we'll move forward into, there's no way in my class that I'm going to be able to tell you about every single gang that's ever existed, even if you gave me a full week, right?
Right.
But what I'll do is I'll take, based on the area that you're in, I'll take 5 to 10 of the largest gangs in your area. I'll teach you their history and their identifiers, so that if you can kind of point out those, you've got foundational knowledge to look for more in your area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll look at different ways to kind of investigate these guys, different interview tactics for these gang members, and different ways that you can apply your local laws to really leverage kind of the law book and case law to really crack down on these organizations, and ultimately decrease the crime rate in your area and increase officer safety. That's another thing that I like to teach patrol guys. Even if you're not trying to investigate this whole organization, knowing the gangs on your beat will directly increase how safe you are at work.
Yeah.
Because,
amen.
Because gang members, man, they're statistically way more likely to assault us in the line of duty. And unfortunately, like I said, that's what kind of got me so passionate about this, was losing a friend to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But that's an unfortunate reality, is that's only one example of a sea of gang members assaulting people. I think the YSL case is a big one in the news right now. Have you heard about that?
No, touch on that.
Young Slime Life. You familiar
I'm
with
sorry, what did you just say? Young what?
Slime Life. Have you
Dear
heard of
God,
Young Thug? He's a rapper.
Oh yeah, okay, Young Thug. I never heard of Young Slime Life though.
Yeah, so Young Thug and Gunna, the allegations, right? It's a trial right now, so whatever. But the allegations are that they were kind of running a gang, and that their music label was a gang more so than a music label, which is another really common thing that we run into, is people hiding their criminal enterprises behind legitimate business like music labels, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, Atlanta police and a few other agencies worked up a spectacular RICO case on these guys and took a ton of them down. And that's a big thing in the news right now. But everybody's focused on the court case and the fact that there's some famous rappers jammed up in it. But what you don't see is that an Atlanta police officer got shot 6 times when they were doing the takedowns for these guys, And so that's what I like to harp on, even for patrol cats or guys that are on like fugitive squads, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Gang members are far more likely to assault us in the line of our duties than non-gang affiliated people are. So even if you're not here to investigate and you just want to answer your calls, maybe do a little bit of proactivity and move on, you can still benefit from learning more about gangs, because at the end of the day, no matter how proactive or just kind of sitting back and answering your calls you want to be, you still want to make it home at the end of the night, right?
Amen to that. I mean, that's the whole reason, right? To have that retirement party.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know what I mean? You want that retirement party.
Right.
That's for sure. I love that. I love the fact that because I believe you might have mentioned it today too, but I remember yesterday you did mention it. Hey, we need you to work for us, right?
Yeah.
So don't go doing this training when you're supposed to be here with us, but you're like, okay, fair enough. You
Yeah.
start your LLC, you go on days off, and you're doing it. And now, when I mentioned I lived in South Carolina, you said, "Hey, that's interesting because I'm not limiting it to Georgia.
Right.
I want to go wherever they want me. I want to teach them
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
beyond. So that's all. So you're willing to go all over the country? Is that right?
Yeah, like I said, man, I just got done. I taught at that conference in South Bend. I gave a 2 hour block up there. I would love to speak for even longer. I had an amazing time. It's always a great experience meeting cops from other regions of the country and seeing how similar our jobs are and also how different, kind of based on where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like I said, this gang stuff, it was eye opening, really, talking about hybrid gangs because I knew they happened kind of everywhere, but I thought it was kind of more localized to the Southeast. But talking to everybody up there about how they're seeing the same thing we are down here is really eye opening for me. So yeah, I'm passionate, and what that tells me, we all know gangs are all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
but we unfortunately also know that a lot.
Well,
Oh no,
worldwide, right? You're trying to get world. I mean, it's worldwide, is it
yeah,
not?
oh yeah,
You know what I'm
worldwide,
saying?
these
I
are
mean, so
transnational organizations, man.
yeah.
Especially I happen to kind of specialize in Hispanic gangs. We have a huge amount of diversity in my county, and it's a beautiful thing. But unfortunately, we have a lot of problems with Hispanic gangs, specifically Sereno cliques in my area.
Yeah.
And so most of my experience is actually with Serenos. So
Where I'm from in Central California, it was the Serenos a lot. So Northerners too, but I mean Serenos was big in Central California.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
and we all know. I mean, those guys are directly connected to cartels. They're
Mm-hmm.
transnational, especially if you look at you get outside of some of the more traditional Sereno cliques. You start looking at MS-13 and 18th Street. They got direct ties down to Central America and stuff.
Big dogs, yeah, big dogs.
Yeah, and all these biker gangs that you were talking about, these guys got European chapters, Australian chapters, all this other stuff. I mean, this is an international issue, and like I said, if I can share my knowledge and make a community safer wherever I'll go, or make a cop safer wherever I'll go, it would be a privilege, honestly. So
And you know what? And let me be the first to say I'm grateful for that, man. I mean, because passionate and doing the job for the right reasons is why every one of us, none of us should play cop. We should be cops for a reason, right? Law
right,
enforcement for a reason. So I love that. I'm proud of you for doing that. I know me being proud of you don't mean squat, but I am. You know what I'm saying?
it's
So
big,
thank you
man.
for doing that.
Yeah,
Oh, Kyle Dombrowski. Dang it. Forgive me, Kyle, because
yeah,
we became too cool. Have you heard of him? I don't know if you heard of him, but
yeah. I met him while I was up there. He's a really cool dude, man.
yeah, and he's doing big. His passion matches yours. So
Mm.
yeah, I hope that you guys get together and do some things because he feels the same way and is very knowledgeable as well. So,
Yeah,
these cats that get on, our subscribers that are looking for these trainings and stuff, you offer the discount too, or what kind of discounts you give them?
yeah. So I mean, I'm brand new out of the gate with this LLC thing, man. But yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. We can definitely talk discounts for coming through LEO Network, and I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
And,
I
we,
wanted
and,
to
we, and
shout
we're
out
grateful
to
for that.
what's that?
And we're grateful for that too.
Yeah, I mean,
We
y'all giving me a great platform right now, and like I said, I've used it. I think I told you yesterday. I used it for my first couple of classes last week, and it's amazing seeing how the review system works and getting that immediate feedback. It can help me get better because, like I said, I'm here to provide quality training. So getting that immediate feedback in the reviews is amazing.
fantastic. Hey, will you come back with us? Will you come back on with us in the future?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially, let us know, get us updated. Uh, by next time. I mean, we'll already know the LLC,
Yeah,
Michael Ricks LLC, right?
Michael
Or
Rich
Convention
Training
Training
LLC.
LLC, and that's is that the website as well? What's the website?
So I don't even have a website, man. Like I said,
Oh,
this is all
dig
brand
that.
new, man.
It's all
Brand new.
brand new.
I'm
I,
getting the grassroots off the ground.
well, guess what? Now we got to get you back
That's
because
right.
now we're going to have the website,
Yep.
and by then you'll have touched part of not California, but America that you haven't been yet, and
Yep.
we wish you all the best on that, man. And please, please come back on with us so we can touch more on that. All right.
Yeah, will do. Hey, man, I appreciate you having me. And I want to give a shout out to, like I said, I'm here for passion. I want to give a shout out to some there a million other guys just as passionate as I am around the area. Kyle Dombrowski's huge. He gave me an opportunity to speak, like I said, up there in Indiana, and Jose.
When was that? When was that, by the way?
What's that?
When was that, by the way?
That was at the beginning of May.
So we were at the same place at the same time.
Yeah, so we were there actually. We probably bumped shoulders, man, in that crowded hallway, walking back and forth.
Well, you do kind of look familiar to me, though. So
yeah.
But go give your shout out. Say some names.
Yeah. Jose Ramirez too, down here in Georgia, man. He's the president of our local Georgia Gang Investigators Association, and he's doing. You want to talk about another passionate individual? One of the most intriguing and interesting presenters that I've ever taken a class from. Jose is. So I want to give a shout out to him too. He's got a training LLC, Jose Ramirez Gang Training, that I work closely with him a lot too. And just, all the other guys out here kind of doing law enforcement and doing God's work out here, keeping everybody safer. So thank you guys so much for having me on. I want to give a shout out to everybody like that,
Yeah, no problem. And hopefully you even get it out to civilians so they can recognize and keep civilians safe as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing I want to get into too, without going too long right now, is, like I said, the average age of gang members in the United States is 14 to 17. It's all over social media. So we can teach cops how to arrest these guys, but at the end of the day, we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. And we got to touch the community and prevent these 14-year-olds and sometimes even younger from getting into the gangs in the first place if we actually want to solve this issue. You
couldn't have said that any better. That was very well said. And I agree wholeheartedly. Well, good, man. I wish you the best of luck with the LLC. I know it's going to blow up, so don't stop doing what you're doing, and make sure you get back with us, especially if something breaks new. And if we haven't reached out to you, by God, reach out to us, and we'll get you back on. We'll talk about it. All right?
Yes, sir. I appreciate the time, man. Thank you.
All right, Michael Ricks LLC, Michael Ricks Training LLC. I always forget the training, and that's the most important part.
No, that's all good, man.
All right, all the best to you, bud. Take care of yourself, man, and we'll talk soon. All right?
All right, man. Have a great night.
You do the same.